One small mistake after an accident can destroy your case. The accident wasn't your fault. You have the injuries, you have the medical bills, you have witnesses. Maybe you even have photos proving exactly what happened. It seems like an open and shut case. Then, weeks later, you find out your claim is falling apart, not because the evidence disappeared, not because the other side proved you were lying, but because of one small mistake you didn't even realize mattered. Every year, injury victims with legitimate claims unknowingly damage their own cases through simple actions that seem harmless at the time. And once insurance companies discover those mistakes, they can use them to reduce, or sometimes completely destroy, the compensation a victim might otherwise have received. The question is, what are those mistakes and why are they so costly? In the aftermath of an accident, most people focus on the obvious problems: the pain, the medical treatment, the damaged vehicle, the missed days at work, the uncertainty about what comes next. What they don't realize is that a personal injury case often begins long before a lawsuit is filed. In fact, from a legal perspective, the moments immediately following an accident can be some of the most important in the entire claim, because that's when evidence is created, statements are made, records are generated, and mistakes can happen. Mistakes that may seem insignificant at the time, but can later become powerful tools for insurance companies and defense attorneys. Consider a common scenario. A driver is involved in a car accident. They're shaken up but don't believe they're seriously injured. When the police arrive, they say they're fine. They exchange information, go home, and try to move on with their lives. A few days later, the pain begins. A week later, it becomes worse. Medical tests reveal injuries that weren't immediately obvious after the crash. This situation is more common than many people realize. After traumatic events, adrenaline can temporarily mask pain and symptoms. Some injuries take time to fully develop. But now there's a problem. The insurance company has a record showing that the victim initially claimed they were fine. Does that automatically destroy the case? No. But it creates an opportunity for the defense to argue that the injuries were either minor or unrelated to the accident. And personal injury cases are often won or lost through opportunities like these. Another common mistake involves delaying medical treatment. Many accident victims hesitate to see a doctor. Some worry about medical expenses. Others believe the pain will disappear on its own. Some are simply busy dealing with life's responsibilities, but from a legal perspective, delays can create serious complications. Insurance companies frequently examine the timeline between an accident and the first medical visit. If weeks pass before treatment begins, they may argue that the injury couldn't have been severe. Or worse, they may claim something else caused the injury during that period. Again, the issue isn't necessarily whether the victim was actually hurt. The issue is whether the defense can create doubt. And doubt can significantly reduce the value of a claim. Then there's communication. Many people underestimate how important their words become after an accident. Insurance adjusters often contact victims early in the claims process. The conversation may sound friendly, routine, informal, but every statement matters. A simple comment like, "I'm feeling better," can later be interpreted very differently in a legal dispute. What the victim meant as a polite response may be presented as evidence that the injuries weren't serious. That's why experienced attorneys frequently advise clients to be accurate, careful, and consistent when discussing their injuries. But perhaps the biggest trap of all exists somewhere most people visit every day: social media. After an accident, many victims continue posting as usual: photos, videos, family outings, vacations, celebrations. None of these activities necessarily mean a person isn't injured. Yet social media rarely shows pain. It rarely shows medical appointments. It rarely shows sleepless nights or physical limitations. Instead, it captures moments, and those moments can be taken out of context. Imagine a person suffering from a serious back injury attends a family gathering for a few hours. A smiling photo appears online. The image doesn't reveal discomfort. It doesn't show medication. It doesn't show the pain that followed afterward, but it may still become evidence. Insurance investigators routinely review publicly available social media accounts, searching for inconsistencies between claimed injuries and online activity. And sometimes, a single photo can raise questions that become difficult to answer. But even these mistakes aren't always the most damaging. Because there is one particular error, an error that seems completely harmless, that can quietly undermine an otherwise strong case. And by the time many victims realize what they've done, the insurance company is already using it against them. So what is this one small mistake that can quietly destroy an injury claim? Failing to document everything. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But in personal injury law, documentation can be the difference between a strong case and a weak one. Think about what happens after an accident. Medical appointments begin. Doctors provide diagnoses. Symptoms change over time. Expenses start piling up. Work is missed. Daily routines become more difficult. Weeks turn into months. And slowly, important details start fading from memory. That's completely normal. The problem is that insurance companies and defense attorneys don't evaluate what you remember months later. They evaluate what can be proven. Without documentation, proving those details becomes much harder. For example, imagine two people suffer similar injuries in similar accidents. The first person keeps records of every medical visit, prescription, treatment recommendation, missed workday, and expense related to the injury. The second person relies mostly on memory and saves very little paperwork. When settlement negotiations begin, one claim is supported by a detailed paper trail. The other relies heavily on personal recollection. Which case do you think will be easier to prove? This is why experienced personal injury attorneys often encourage clients to keep organized records from the very beginning: photographs of injuries, medical reports, receipts, communication with insurance companies, witness information, employment records showing lost wages. Even a simple journal documenting pain levels and daily limitations can become valuable evidence because injuries affect more than medical bills. They affect lives, and documentation helps demonstrate that impact. The reality is that insurance companies aren't looking for reasons to pay more. They're looking for reasons to challenge, question, or reduce claims whenever possible. Missing records create opportunities. Incomplete timelines create opportunities. Gaps in evidence create opportunities. And those opportunities often become arguments that weaken a case. That's why the most damaging mistakes are not always dramatic. They're often small. A delayed doctor visit, an inaccurate statement, a careless social media post, a missing receipt, a forgotten appointment, a failure to document important details. Individually, each mistake may seem insignificant, but together, they can create enough uncertainty to dramatically affect the outcome of a claim. And that's the lesson many injury victims learn too late. Winning a personal injury case isn't just about proving that an accident happened. It's about proving the full extent of what happened afterward, the medical consequences, the financial losses, the pain, the limitations, the impact on everyday life. And that proof comes from evidence, not assumptions, not memories, not good intentions. Evidence, because in the legal system, even a strong case can become vulnerable when critical details are missing. And sometimes, the difference between receiving fair compensation and walking away with far less comes down to one small mistake that seemed harmless at the time. Now we'd like to hear from you. Before watching this video, did you know that something as simple as missing documentation or making an innocent statement could affect an injury claim? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy learning about personal injury law, insurance tactics, legal strategies, and the mistakes that can make or break a lawsuit, subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week, We uncover the hidden details behind real legal battles and the lessons that could save you from making the same costly mistakes.